Consciousness. What is the proof of consciousness? That very question is the proof. That question is lit up by consciousness. The outer light, the lighting up objects outside, and the inner light of consciousness have something in common in their characteristics. Both are imperceptible to the sense organ or the mind. The existence of the outer light is affirmed by the fact that objects are manifested in its presence. In a similar way, the light of consciousness is proved by the fact that objects are lit up or known in its presence. But what are the functions of consciousness? Like fire, consciousness has two functions. The first, it illumines objects at a distance. And the second, it destroys them on contact. Well, what happens when you think of consciousness? All thought of consciousness annihilates thought, like a moth in the fire. Is consciousness recommended as the best of the three mediums for visualizing the ultimate? And if so, why? Consciousness alone tells you that existence and happiness are both implied in consciousness. And so the truth, visualized through consciousness, comprehends the existence and happiness aspects as well. But it could be said that existence and happiness also might say the same about the other two. In that case, existence and happiness are indenting upon the services of consciousness, even to say so. They themselves are established only by the help of consciousness. Otherwise, existence and happiness would never have been noted at all. Is it a fallacy of subconscious and superconscious states? The subconscious state is when the mind involuntarily and without any effort goes into a state where the mind dies. It is called a subconscious state, such as deep sleep. The superconscious state happens as a result of an active effort of the mind. The objects, gross as well as subtle, vanish, and you are thrown into a state where the mind becomes still. It is called the superconscious state, or samadhi. But when you direct your attention to the consciousness aspect of any activity, in any state, you transcend the mind and reach the ultimate. The taint of the sub or the super prefix of consciousness lies in the samskara or the vasana, the habituated feeling or latent tendency, that they are the cause of some other result, just as ignorance is supposed to be the cause of the world. Even when consciousness appears limited to any object, know for certain that it is not limited. This knowledge takes you to the natural state. Consciousness can never be sub or super. It is always pure and absolute. What is the meaning of the subdividing or the grading of consciousness? Usually, consciousness is divided into the subconscious, conscious, and superconscious, all being based upon consciousness. Pure consciousness is equally present in all these three states. It is from the standpoint of consciousness itself, and not from the standpoint of him who is conscious, that these different states are to be considered. The services of pure consciousness have to be indented upon to connect the three states. And in that light, there is no difference between these states. You can compare the states only by standing outside them as their perceiver. The perceiver can never be the perceived. The perceiver is pure impersonal consciousness alone. It is consciousness and not conscious. All the three are expressions of consciousness, and all the three are sub or inferior from the position of pure consciousness. What you call super from the mental level in the waking state is sub from the level of pure consciousness. So they are only empty words. But how to prove that all is consciousness? From seeing a form, if either scene or form is separated, then both vanish simultaneously, because neither can exist independently of the other. Therefore, both are one, but not as either. Then what is it? When form and scene disappear, consciousness alone remains over. That is the only reality behind it. Thus, everything is permanent as the background and not as the expression. Are the mind and senses present in consciousness? Some people say that mind and senses are not present in consciousness, but that position is wrong. They are present in consciousness. Are you not aware of the existence of mind and senses? Of course you are. But you ask, are they not in your awareness, which is pure consciousness? And they are. Can you speak of consciousness alone, perceived objectively as well as subjectively? Light by itself is not perceptible to the naked eye. You perceive light only when it is temporarily obstructed by an object. This perception of light you wrongly call the object. This is a phenomena usually misunderstood, and the fallacy is, on the face of it, obvious. In a similar way, pure consciousness is not perceivable, as is evident in deep sleep. But when consciousness is confined or limited to a particular object, it seems to become perceptible. But even then, it is not the object, but it is consciousness alone that is perceived. Therefore, nobody has ever seen or perceived an object, but only light or consciousness. Take hold of an object. you find the object cannot appear without the help of consciousness. Take hold of consciousness that is in the object. And this is possible only with the help of the Guru. Then you reach pure consciousness objectively. Take hold of consciousness in the senses or mind in the same manner, and you reach pure consciousness, your real nature subjectively. Both being one, you stand in advaita, non-duality. If you achieve that degree of identification with the light of knowledge, as you had with body in the waking state, there is nothing more to be achieved. Then the impersonal becomes stronger than the personal. The sadhak, the spiritual aspirant who stands as the personal, does the sadhana, the spiritual work of acting the part of the impersonal. I know I am. And this amness does not belong either to the senses or to the mind. It is intrinsic. This is the nature of self-luminosity. What is the result of emphasizing consciousness in ideas or objects? Consciousness is absolute and is only one. Consciousness plus something equals an idea. Emphasizing consciousness means looking at the idea from the standpoint of consciousness. When consciousness begins to look at the idea, consciousness being only one and that being already in the idea as its essence, well then that consciousness has to stand out of the idea. And the idea being divested of its essence of consciousness becomes extinct. Consciousness is the essence of both the idea and the object. If consciousness stands as the idea, the object disappears. If consciousness stands as consciousness itself, the idea also disappears. Consider the illustration of the figure in the rock. It can be said, from one standpoint, that consciousness by itself never illumines ideas or objects, but only destroys them. Let us apply this process in our daily life. You say in the waking state that you remember your past dream, but what exactly is it that you remember? You remember only the scene of objects in the dream. What else was there in the dream? Nothing. All that appeared as gross objects in the dream were nothing other than the scene itself. This fact needs no further proof when you wake up. This is typical of every so-called waking experience also. Therefore, it is only seeing that appears as object. And in a similar way, it is consciousness that appears as seeing in both the states. We generally say, I am happy and I am consciousness. Is it ultimately true? No. It is only at the moment when you are happy that you are aware of the fact that you are happy. That knowledge is in identity, where knowing it is being it. But when you say that the happiness is past, the subject-object relationship sets in. It is this kind of knowledge that people want, because the ordinary man stands as the empirical subject and is incapable of thinking of anything beyond. Thus, when you say you are happy, you are really not happy. And in a similar way, when you know Atma, the self, you stand as Atma, or you are Atma. But when you say so, your stand changes, and you cease to identify yourself with Atma. Yet still Atma as self-awareness stands as the background of even the saying of this. Self-awareness is the ground of awareness of objects. Even when objects vanish, awareness continues. In all the three states, awareness is the only principle that does not change or die out, and awareness is indivisible. Therefore, awareness is this self-awareness itself that appears as or is the ground of awareness of objects. Why is consciousness invisible? The nature of consciousness is experience itself. The I principle is the only experience. The test of experience are permanence and self-luminosity. Experience can never be experienced. It is the self which is experience alone. To become visible, it must stand as an object of perception, which consciousness can never do. To know, to enjoy, and to become it are all functions of the ego. But to be it is alone yours. You were and are that, always.